A human war soldier inherited the alien king's hated wolf. Then it spoke like a human part. 1. The inheritance, the war was over. Humanity had won. Sergeant Park Do-hyun walked through the broken palace of the Velen King. His boots made soft sounds on the cracked marble floor. 3 days ago, this place was full of alien soldiers. Now it was silent. Dead bodies had been removed. Weapons had been collected. But the smell of war still hung in the air like a ghost that refused to leave. Do-hyun was 32 years old. He had been fighting for 6 years. 6 long years since the Velens first attacked Earth. 6 years since he watched Seoul burn. 6 years since he held his younger sister Soyeon in his arms as she took her last breath. He did not feel like a winner. He felt tired, empty, like a machine that had finished its job and now had no purpose. His mission today was simple. Clear the royal chambers. Check for hidden weapons or technology. Report anything unusual. The palace was massive. The Velen King had lived like a god among his people. Gold covered every wall. Strange alien art decorated every corner. But Do-hyun noticed something else too. The servants who had survived spoke of the king with fear, not respect. He'd been a tyrant. His own people hated him. Do-hyun entered a long hallway that led downward. The lights here were broken. He turned on his flashlight and continued walking. The air grew cold. The walls changed from decorated marble to plain black stone. He was going underground. At the end of the hallway, he found a door. It was made of heavy metal and covered with chains and locks. Whatever was behind this door, the king had wanted it to stay hidden. Do-hyun used his plasma cutter to break through. The locks fell to the ground one by one. When the door finally opened, a terrible smell hit his face. The smell of old blood, of suffering, of something that had been forgotten in darkness for a very long time. He stepped inside and raised his flashlight. His breath stopped. In the center of the room, chained to the floor and walls, was a creature unlike anything he had seen before. It looked like a wolf from Earth, but much bigger. Much bigger. Its shoulder would reach Do-hyun's chest if it stood. Its fur was silver blue, but dirty and covered with dried blood. Deep scars crossed its body like a map of pain. Some scars were old. Some were fresh. The creature was so thin that Do-hyun could see its bones. Its ribs pushed against its skin like a cage trying to break free. It lay on its side, barely breathing. Chains around its neck had rubbed the fur and skin away completely, leaving raw flesh. Do-hyun felt something break inside his chest. He had seen death. He had caused death. But this was different. This was not war. This was cruelty for its own sake. He took a step closer. The creature's eyes opened. Those eyes. Do-hyun would never forget those eyes. They were gold, like 2 small suns. But there was something in them that made Do-hyun's heart ache. Intelligence. Deep, ancient intelligence. And pain. So much pain that it seemed impossible for one being to hold it all. The wolf looked at Do-hyun. It did not growl. It did not try to attack. It just looked at him as if it was waiting. Waiting for another beating. Another burn. Another piece of itself to be taken away. Do-hyun slowly knelt down. He put his weapon on the ground. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly. The wolf just stared. Do-hyun found a datapad in the corner of the room. He picked it up and read the files. What he learned made him sick. This creature was called a void wolf. Once, they were a proud species. They could travel between stars. They had their own civilization. But the Velens feared them. So the Velens hunted them. Every single one. They killed them all until only one was left. This one. The Velen King had kept this wolf for over 400 years. 400 years of torture. 400 years of darkness. The files described experiments, burnings, things that, Do-hyun could not finish reading. He turned off the datapad and threw it against the wall. His communicator beeped. It was Captain Yoon Mi-rae, his commanding officer. "Sergeant Park, what is your status?" Do-hyun looked at the Wolf. Military rules were clear. Dangerous alien creatures should be killed or sent to research facilities. He knew what he was supposed to say, but he also knew what he was going to do. "Captain, I found something. War salvage. I am claiming it under Regulation 7 Alpha." There was silence on the other end. Regulation 7 Alpha was old and rarely used. It allowed soldiers to claim abandoned enemy property as personal salvage if it had no military value. "Sergeant, what exactly did you find?" "An animal, Captain. Just an animal. No military value. But I want it." More silence. Then Captain Yoon sighed. "Fine. It is your responsibility. If it causes any problems, it is on you." "Understood, Captain." Do-hyun ended the call. He looked at the Wolf again. "I am going to get you out of here," he said. "I do not know if you can understand me, but I promise no one will hurt you again." He called for a medical team. They were afraid when they saw the Wolf, but Do-hyun made them work. They removed the chains carefully. They cleaned the wounds. They put the Wolf on a transport bed. Through all of this, the Wolf never made a sound. It just watched Do-hyun with those golden eyes. Always watching. When they finally brought the Wolf to the medical bay, a young soldier asked Do-hyun a question. "Sergeant, what will you name it?" Do-hyun thought for a moment. The Wolf was covered in dirt and blood. Its fur was gray with age and suffering. But underneath all that, he could see hints of silver. Clean silver that wanted to shine again. "Beak," he said. The word meant white, pure, clean. "I will call him Beak." The Wolf's ear twitched at the sound. For just one moment, something changed in those ancient eyes. Something that might have been hope, or maybe Do-hyun was just imagining it. Either way, he made a silent promise. He had failed to save his sister. He had failed to protect his home. But he would not fail this creature. He would give Beak the kindness that had been stolen from him. For 400 years, he did not know that this decision would change his life forever. He did not know that Beak was much more than a wolf, and he certainly did not know that one day Beak would speak. A human war soldier inherited the alien king's hated wolf. Then it spoke like a human. Part 2. The silent bond. 6 months passed. The Terran military had built a forward base on one of the moons near the Velen home planet. They called it New Dawn. It was a fitting name. The war was over. A new era was beginning. But for Sergeant Park Do-hyun, every day felt the same. He woke up. He did his duties. He went to Beak. He slept. He repeated. The first 3 weeks after he rescued Beak were the hardest. The wolf refused to eat. The military doctors said he would die soon if he did not take food. They said Do-hyun should give up. They said some creatures were too broken to save. Do-hyun did not listen. Every night, he brought his sleeping bag to the special kennel they had built for Beak. It was not really a kennel. It was more like a small room with soft bedding and warm lights. Do-hyun had spent his own money to make it comfortable. He would lie down next to the fence that separated them. And he would talk. He talked about everything. About Earth. About the blue oceans and green mountains. About the food he missed. About the songs his mother used to sing. About his childhood in a small town outside Seoul. And he talked about Soyeon. She was 23 when she died, Do-hyun said one night. His voice was soft in the darkness. She wanted to be a teacher. She loved children. She used to say that the future lived in their eyes. Beak lay on his side, facing the wall. He did not move, but his ears turned slightly toward Do-hyun's voice. "I was supposed to protect her. I was her older brother. That was my job. Do-hyun's voice broke a little. But I was not there. I was fighting somewhere in space while she died on Earth. I did not even get to say goodbye. He wiped his eyes. I am sorry. You probably do not understand anything I am saying, but it helps me to talk. It helps me to feel like someone is listening. The next morning, Beak ate for the first time. It was just a small piece of meat. But Do-hyun almost cried when he saw it. He called the doctors. They were shocked. They could not explain it, but Do-hyun understood. Beak had hurt him. Somehow, in some way, the wolf had hurt him. As the weeks passed, Beak grew stronger. His wounds healed. His fur became clear and started to shine. He began to walk around his room. Then he began to follow Do-hyun. Wherever Do-hyun went, Beak went too. The military command did not like it at first. A massive alien predator walking through the base made people nervous. But Beak never hurt anyone. He never even growled. He just walked beside Do-hyun like a shadow. A very large, very silver shadow. Most soldiers stayed away from them. They whispered behind Do-hyun's back. They called him crazy. They said the wolf was dangerous and should be killed. But one person did not stay away. Private First Class Kim Ji-woo was a young medic. She was only 24 years old, but her eyes looked older. The Vellans had destroyed her hometown in the first year of the war. She lost her parents, her brothers, her grandparents. Everyone died. Maybe that was why she understood. One day, she walked up to Do-hyun while he was feeding Beak. "Can I try?" she asked. Do-hyun looked at her with surprise. "He does not take food from anyone except me." "I know, but I want to try." She held out a piece of meat. Her hand was shaking a little, but her eyes were steady. Beak looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he walked forward and took the food from her hand. Do-hyun stared. That has never happened before. Ji-woo smiled. It was a sad smile. Maybe he knows what it feels like to lose everything. From that day on, Ji-woo became part of their small family. She would visit every evening. She would bring extra food for Beak and sometimes a small gift for Do-hyun. Tea, snacks, books, small things that reminded him he was still human. But not everyone was happy about Beak. Lieutenant Han Tai-woo was a military intelligence officer. His job was to study alien technology and threats. He had been watching Beak for months. One day, he came to Do-hyun with questions. "The Velen King had technology we do not understand," Tai-woo said. "He could change living creatures at the genetic level. He could create monsters. Tell me, Sergeant, what exactly is your wolf?" "He is just a wolf," Do-hyun said. "The last of his kind, is he?" Tai-woo's eyes were sharp. "Because I have been watching the security recordings. Your wolf seems to know things before they happen. He looks where cameras cannot see. He wakes up before alarms go off. That is not normal animal behavior." Do-hyun said nothing. 2 weeks later, he learned that Tai-woo was right to be suspicious. It happened at night. A group of Velen rebels had secretly entered the base. They were the ones who still supported the dead king. They wanted revenge. Do-hyun was sleeping in his room when Beak suddenly jumped to his feet. The wolf's body was tense. His golden eyes stared at the door. 3 seconds later, the door exploded. Velen assassins poured into the room. They were fast. They were trained. They had weapons that could cut through human armor like paper. But they were not faster than Beak. The wolf moved like lightning. Do-hyun barely saw what happened. One moment, the assassins were charging forward. The next moment, they were on the ground, dead. All 6 of them. Beak stood in the middle of the bodies. His silver fur was stained with purple Velen blood. His breath was heavy, but he was not hurt. Not even a scratch. Do-hyun slowly stood up. His heart was beating so fast, he could hear it in his ears. "Beak," he whispered. "What are you?" The wolf turned to look at him. Those golden eyes held something Do-yoon had never seen before. Something that looked almost like guilt. Like a secret that wanted to be told, but could not find the words. Beak walked over to Do-hyun and pressed his massive head against the soldier's chest. He made a soft sound, almost like a sigh. That night, 40 soldiers were saved because Beak had sensed the danger first. The assassins had planned to kill everyone in the barracks while they slept, but Beak had known. Somehow, he had known. Lieutenant Tao came to Do-hyun the next morning. "I was right," he said. "That creature is more than a wolf. Much more." Do-hyun put his hand on Beak's head. "Maybe, but he is also my friend, and I will protect him, no matter what he is." Taiwu studied them both for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. "Then we should find out together. Because I think your wolf has secrets that could change everything." That night, Do-hyun lay next to Beak as usual. He talked about his day, about the attack, about how grateful the other soldiers were, and then he noticed something strange. Beak's mouth was moving, just slightly, like he was trying to form shapes with his lips, shapes that did not belong to a wolf. "Beak," Do-hyun whispered. The wolf stopped. He looked at Do-hyun with those ancient eyes full of something that looked like frustration, like words trapped inside a cage of flesh. Do-hyun felt his heart ache. "It is okay," he said softly. "Take your time. I will be here. Every night, as long as you need." Beak closed his eyes, and somewhere deep inside him, a voice that had been silent for 400 years began to remember how to speak. A human war soldier inherited the alien king's hated wolf. Then it spoke like a human. Part 3. The first word 8 months after the war ended. Do-hyun received new orders. He was to serve as a security officer on the UEN's reunification. It was the biggest ship in the Terran fleet. More importantly, it was where humans and Velans would sign the first peace treaty. Do-hyun knew why he was chosen. The military still did not know what to do with a soldier who refused to leave his alien wolf. So they sent him somewhere important but gave him a job that did not really matter. He did not care. Beak could come with him. That was all that mattered. Captain Yu Mai-Rei was on the same ship. She had been promoted after the war. She was now in charge of all security for the peace talks. "You look good, Sergeant," she said when she saw him. "The wolf, too. He has grown." It was true. Beak was now fully healed. His silver blue fur was thick and shining. His body was strong and powerful. When he walked through the ship's corridors, people moved out of his way without being asked. But Do-hyun noticed something else, too. Beak was changing in other ways. He would sometimes stop and stare at nothing, as if listening to sounds no one else could hear. He would tilt his head when people spoke, like he was trying to understand their words. And at night, his mouth still moved, slowly, carefully, like he was practicing. The peace talks were difficult. Many Velans still hated humans. Many humans still hated Velans. The politicians smiled and shook hands in public. But behind closed doors, there was anger and distrust. On the 5th day, everything went wrong. The meeting room was full of important people. Human generals, Velan leaders, diplomats from both sides. Do-hyun stood against the wall with Beak beside him. His job was to watch and report anything suspicious. He did not see the danger until it was too late. One of the Velan servants was not really a servant. He was an extremist, a follower of the dead king who believed that the war should never end. Hidden under his clothes was a weapon that human technology could not detect. It was called a neural disruptor. When it activated, it sent out a wave of energy that attacked the nervous system. Every living being in the room would be paralyzed, unable to move, unable to fight. The extremist pressed the button. Do-hyun felt the wave hit him like a wall of ice. His body stopped working. He fell to the ground. His eyes stayed open, but he could not move anything else. All around him, he heard bodies falling. Humans, villains. Everyone collapsed like puppets with cut strings. Everyone, except Beak. The wolf stood in the center of the room. The neural wave washed over him like water over stone. It did not affect him at all. The extremist's eyes went wide with shock. This was not supposed to happen. The neural disruptor worked on every known species. Nothing could resist it. He did not have time to wonder for long. Beak moved faster than Do Yun had ever seen him move. The wolf crossed the room in a blur of silver. His jaws found the extremist's throat. The attack was over in seconds, but there were more of them. 5 more extremists emerged from hiding places around the room. They had backup weapons, blades, energy pistols. They had planned for the possibility that the disruptor might fail. They had not planned for Beak. The wolf moved through them like wind through leaves. Each movement was perfect. Each strike was fatal. He did not fight like an animal. Biol, miul. He fought like a warrior who had trained for centuries. Because that is exactly what he was. When the last extremist fell, Beak stood alone in a room of frozen bodies. His fur was splashed with purple blood. His golden eyes scanned the room, checking for more threats. There were none. Slowly, the wolf walked toward Do Yun. The soldier was still paralyzed on the ground. He could not move, could not speak, could only watch as Beak approached. The wolf lay down beside him. He pressed his massive head against Do Yun's chest, just above his heart. A soft glow began to spread from Beak's body. It was warm, gentle, like sunlight after a long winter. Do Yun felt his body start to respond. His fingers twitched. His lungs took a deeper breath. Whatever Beak was doing, it was fighting the effects of the neural disruptor. And then Beak spoke. Wake. The word was rough. Broken. It sounded like rocks scraping against each other. But it was unmistakably Korean. Unmistakably a word. You must wake. I will not lose another. Do Yun's eyes went wide. His body finally unfroze enough for him to push himself up on his elbows. He stared at the wolf. You can talk? Beak's golden eyes met his. There was something in them that looked like relief. Like a door that had been locked for centuries was finally opening. I have always understood, Beak said. Each word was slow and difficult, like he was remembering how to use muscles that had not moved in a very long time. I could not. The king burned my voice. Many times. He did not want me to speak. He wanted me to be only an animal. Do Yun sat up fully. The room was still frozen around them. No one else could hear. This moment belonged only to the two of them. But you spoke to me, Beak continued. His voice was getting slightly stronger. Every night. You told me about your world, your sister, your pain. You gave me words that were not orders or curses. You gave me words that were kind. Tears were forming in Do Yun's eyes. He did not try to stop them. Why? He asked. Why did you not speak before? Beak was silent for a moment. 400 years of pain moved behind his golden eyes. I had forgotten, he finally said. I had forgotten that words could be kind. The king used words only to hurt, to command, to break. After so many years, I thought all words were like that. I thought speaking would only bring more pain. He pressed his head against Do Yun's chest again. But he taught me something different. You taught me that words can heal. Words can comfort. Words can say, I am here. You are not alone. Do Yun wrapped his arms around Beak's neck. He held the wolf tight. He was crying now, and he did not care who might see. I thought I was saving you, he whispered. But you saved me too. Every time I talked to you, I felt a little more human. A little less like a machine. We saved each other, Beak said. That is what family does. Family. The word hung in the air like a promise. Around them, people were starting to move again. The effects of the neural disruptor were wearing off. Soon there would be questions, investigations. People would want to know how Beak had resisted the weapon, how he had fought so perfectly, how he had healed Do-Yun. But that was for later. For now, a soldier and a wolf sat together in the middle of chaos. A human who had lost everything. A creature who had been alone for 4 centuries. 2 broken souls who had somehow found each other. Do-Yun pulled back and looked into Beak's eyes. Will you tell me your story? He asked. Your real story? Who you really are? Beak's ears lowered slightly. It is a long story. And a painful one. I am not going anywhere, Do-Yun said. Take as much time as you need. For the first time since Do-Yun had known him, Beak made a sound that might have been a laugh. It was rough and unpracticed, like a machine starting up after years of rest. Then I will tell you, the wolf said. Everything. But not here. Not now. When we are safe. When we are home. Home. Another word that meant more than it seemed. Do-Yun nodded. Okay, when we are home. He stood up and offered his hand to the wolf. It was a human gesture that made no logical sense. Wolves do not need help standing, but Beak understood. He pressed his head against Do-Yun's palm for a moment. Then they walked out of the room together. A human and a wolf. A soldier and a prince. And the galaxy would never be the same. A human war soldier inherited the alien king's hated wolf. Then it spoke like a human Part 4. The truth unveiled 2 months after Beak spoke his first words. A team of researchers made a discovery that changed everything. They found the Velen Royal Archive. It was hidden deep beneath the dead king's palace, protected by security systems that took weeks to break through. Inside were records of every experiment the Velens had ever conducted, every species they had studied, every secret they had kept. Lieutenant Han Tai-Wu was the first to read the files about Beak. He called Do-Yun immediately. You need to come here, he said. His voice sounded strange, shaken. And bring the wolf. The archive was cold and dark. Old machines hummed in the corners. Data screens covered every wall, filled with alien writing that human computers were still learning to translate. Tai-Wu led them to a private room. His face was pale. I found out what your wolf really is, he said. And it is not what any of us expected. He activated a screen. Images appeared. Ancient images of creatures that looked like Beak. But they were not running through forests or hunting prey. They were building cities, flying ships, walking among stars. The Void Wolves were not animals, Tai-Wu said. They were a civilization, one of the oldest in the galaxy. They achieved space travel millions of years before the Velens even existed. Do-Yun stared at the images. That is impossible. Beak is the last prince of his people, Tai-Wu said quietly. His real name, in his own language, means something like, he who runs between stars. He was royalty, the son of their king. Do-Yun turned to look at Beak. The wolf sat beside him, watching the screen with those ancient golden eyes. Eyes that now held a pain too deep for words. Is this true? Do-Yun asked. Beak was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. His voice was stronger now, though still rough. Yes, it is true. I did not tell you because I was not ready to remember. Tai-Wu continued showing records. The truth became worse with each file. The Void Wolves had special abilities. They could sense danger before it happened. They could resist technology that affected the mind. They could communicate through thoughts across vast distances. The Velens feared these powers, so they decided to destroy the Void Wolves completely. The war lasted 300 years. The Velens used weapons that poisoned entire planets. They hunted the void wolves across the galaxy. They killed everyone, men, women, children, elders. They left no one alive, except Beak. The king kept him as a trophy, Taiwu said. His voice was thick with disgust. For 400 years, he used Beak as a test subject. He wanted to understand the void wolf abilities. He wanted to copy them. But when he could not, he simply broke him instead. The screen showed records of experiments, burnings, genetic torture, attempts to remove Beak's intelligence and make him into a mindless beast. The Velen King had tried to erase everything that made Beak who he was. Doyun felt sick. He wanted to look away, but he forced himself to keep watching. Beak had lived through this. The least Doyun could do was witness it. "They burned my voice," Beak said softly. "Many times. Every time I tried to speak, they burned it again. They wanted me to forget that I could. They wanted me to believe I was only an animal. But you remembered," Doyun said. "I held on to one thing." Beak's eyes were distant. Hatred. Hatred for the king. Hatred for the Valens. It was the only fire they could not put out. I survived on that hatred for 400 years. He turned to look at Doyun. "Until you found me. Until you spoke to me with kindness. Then I remembered something else. I remembered that before the hatred, there was love. There was family. There was hope. I had buried those things so deep that I forgot they existed. But you helped me find them again." Dohim knelt down beside Beak. He put his hand on the wolf's head. "I am sorry," he said. "I am so sorry for what they did to you." "Do not be sorry," Beak said. "Be proud. Your people stopped them. Your people ended the Velen King's rule. You gave me something I never thought I would have again. Freedom." Taiwu cleared his throat. "There's more." He pulled up another file. This one showed a star map with a location marked in red. The Void Wolves had technology that was far beyond anything we have ever seen. When they realized they were losing the war, they hid it. All of it. Their knowledge, their history, their science. Everything that made them who they were. He looked at Beak. "You are the only one who knows where it is hidden. You are the last keeper of that location. It is locked in your memory somewhere." Beak lowered his head. "I know. I have always known. But to find that place, I would have to fully remember everything. Everything I lost. Everyone I loved." His voice broke slightly. "My mother, my siblings, my maid. I watched them die. The king made me watch. And then he tried to make me forget. But now, if I want to find our legacy, I have to remember every moment of their deaths." The room was silent. Dohyun understood now why Beak had kept this secret. Some memories were too painful to touch. Some doors, once opened, could never be closed again. Kim Ji-woo spoke for the first time. She had been standing quietly in the corner, listening to everything. "You do not have to do it alone," she said. Everyone looked at her. "I lost everyone too," she continued. "My parents, my brothers, my home. I know what it feels like to carry memories that cut like glass. But I also know that carrying them alone makes them heavier." She walked over to Beak and knelt down beside him. "You have a family now. Maybe not the same as before, but a family still. Let us help you carry this weight. Let us walk with you through the dark places." Beak looked at her. For a moment, something shifted in his ancient eyes. Something that looked like surprise. And then, slowly, gratitude. "You are very young," he said. "But you speak like someone who has lived 1,000 years. Pain ages us all," Jiwoo said simply. Captain Yoon Mi-rae stepped forward. "The lieutenant is right about one thing. There are others looking for this Void Wolf technology. Velen extremists who want to use it to start the war again. If they find it first, they will not," Beak said. His voice was suddenly hard, strong. "I did not survive 400 years of torture to let my people's legacy fall into the hands of their murderers." He stood up. His silver fur seemed to glow slightly in the dim light of the archive. "I will remember. I will find our hidden world. And I will make sure that the Void Wolves are not forgotten." He looked at Doyen. "But I will not do it alone. I will do it with my pack." Doyen smiled. It was the first real smile he had felt in years. "Then let us go," he said. "Let us find your home." And so they began to prepare for a journey across the stars. A human soldier who had lost his sister. A wolf prince who had lost his entire world. A young medic who understood the weight of grief. An intelligence officer who had discovered the truth. And a captain who was willing to fight for what was right. They were an unlikely family, but they were family nonetheless. And together, they would face the darkness. Together, they would remember. Together, they would find the lost world of the Void Wolves. A human war soldier inherited the alien king's hated wolf. Then it spoke like a human. Part 5. The last wolf's choice the planet was called Ether. It had 2 sons, both dying. Their weak light painted the sky in shades of orange and purple. Once, this world had been full of life. Cities of crystal had stretched across its surface. Void wolves had raised their young here, sung their songs here, loved and lived and dreamed here. Now it was silent. A graveyard of ghosts and memories. Dalton stood at the entrance of their ship and looked out at the ruins. Beside him, Beak stood frozen. The wolf's body was trembling slightly. His golden eyes stared at the broken towers in the distance. "I remember this place," Beak whispered. "I used to run through those fields with my brothers. We would race to see who could reach the crystal tower first. I always won." His voice cracked on the last word. Captain Yun-Mai-Rei checked her weapons. "We need to move. The Velen extremists are only a few hours behind us. They tracked our ship somehow." Lieutenant Han Taiwu nodded. "If they get to the Temple of Memory before us, they could destroy everything." Kim Ji-woo touched Beak's side gently. "We are with you. Remember that." Beak took a deep breath. Then he began to walk forward toward the ruins of his home. The journey through the dead city was painful to watch. Every building they passed brought back memories for Beak. He would stop and stare at a collapsed structure. He would whisper a name that no one else knew. Sometimes his legs would shake so badly that he could barely continue. But he did continue, step by step, memory by memory. He walked through the ghost of his past. Doyun stayed close to him the entire time. He did not say much. There were no words that could make this easier, but he was there. That was what mattered. Finally, they reached the Temple of Memory. It was the only building still standing. Made of material that seemed to shift between solid and liquid, it glowed with a soft inner light. Strange symbols covered its walls, writing in a language that had not been spoken for 4 centuries. Beak stopped at the entrance. "Inside this temple is everything my people were," he said. "Our history, our knowledge, our souls. It is all stored in a psychic construct, a living memory that has been waiting for someone to claim it." He turned to look at Doyun. "To access it, I must merge with it. I must experience every death, every loss, every scream of my people as they died." His voice was steady, but his eyes held fear. "I may not return as I am. The weight of it might break me." Don stepped forward. He knelt down so his eyes were level with Beak's. "Do you remember what you told me when you first spoke?" "I said many things. You said we saved each other. That is what family does." Do-hyun put his hand on Beak's head. "So let us keep doing that. Go in there. Face your memories. And when you come back, we will be here. All of us. Ready to remind you who you are. Every night," Jiwoo added softly. "As long as it takes." Beak looked at each of them. The soldier who had given him hope. The medic who understood his pain. The officer who had sought the truth. The captain who had believed in them. His pack. "Thank you," he said. For everything? Then he turned and walked into the Temple of Memory. The light inside was blinding. Beak felt it wash over him like an ocean. Images flooded his mind. Not just his own memories, but the memories of every void wolf who had ever lived. Millions of souls. Millions of lives. Millions of deaths. He felt his mother's last breath. His siblings' final screams. His mate's hand slipping from his as the Velen weapons tore her apart. He felt the pain of children he had never met, burning in fires they did not understand. He felt the despair of elders who watched their entire world crumble. The weight of it was crushing. He wanted to run, to hide, to retreat back into the darkness where he had hidden for 400 years. But then he heard something else. Voices. Not screaming. Singing. The Void Wolves had sung in their final moments. They had sung songs of love and hope and defiance. They had sung to each other across the darkness, reminding each other that they were not alone, that even in death, they were still pack. And now they sang to him. You are not the last, they seemed to say. You are the first of what comes next. Beak felt something change inside him. The pain did not go away, but it became something different. Not a weight, but a foundation. Not a prison, but a purpose. He opened himself fully to the memories. All of them. And the Temple of Memory opened itself to him. When Beak walked out of the temple, he was different. His silver fur blazed with inner light. His eyes held the wisdom of millions. When he moved, the air itself seemed to bend around him. He was no longer just a wolf. He was the living archive of an entire civilization. But when he saw Do-Yun, his tail wagged. Just once. I remember everything now, he said. His voice was clear and strong. Every life, every death, every song ever sung by my people. They are all part of me now. Do-Yun smiled through his tears. Do you still remember us? I remember the most important things, Beak said. A human who spoke to a beast in the dark, who gave me a name that meant hope, who taught me that kindness is not weakness. The moment was interrupted by an explosion in the distance. The Velen extremists had arrived. There were dozens of them. They came in armed vehicles and combat armor. Their leader, a scarred Velen general who had served the dead king, walked at the front. Give us the temple's secrets, he shouted. Give them to us, and we will let you live. Beak stepped forward. His entire body was glowing now. The light was so bright that the extremists had to shield their eyes. You want the secrets of the void. Wolves? His voice echoed across the dead city like thunder. Here is the only secret that matters. We do not die easily. And we never forget. The battle was brief. Beak moved like nothing the extremists had ever seen. He was everywhere at once. Their weapons passed through him like he was made of light. Their armor crumbled under his attacks like paper. The power of his entire civilization flowed through him. When it was over, the extremists were defeated, not all dead. Beak had shown mercy to those who surrendered, but their threat was ended. The scarred general lay on the ground, looking up at Beak with fear in his eyes. What are you? He gasped. Beak looked down at him. I am the memory of everyone you killed, and I am the promise that you will never do it again. 1 year later, a new world was born. Humans and reformed Velens worked together to build a colony on Ether. The twin suns were dying, but scientists had found ways to keep the planet alive. New buildings rose among the old ruins. New life filled the empty streets and in the nursery. At the center of the colony, small shapes tumbled over each other in playful joy. Void wolf cubs. The first generation of their kind in 4 centuries thought the Temple of Memory had contained more than just history. It had contained genetic archives, the blueprints of life itself. With human and Velen science combined, they had found a way to bring the void wolves back. Do-Yun watched his daughter Yuna play with a silver cub. They were both laughing, both happy, both alive in a way that the galaxy had almost forgotten was possible. He was not Sergeant Park anymore. He was Ambassador Park now. But he still felt more comfortable in simple clothes than in formal uniforms. Beside him, Beak lay in the warm sunlight. The ancient Wolf was old now. His movements were slower. His fur had streaks of white, but his eyes were still golden, still wise, still full of love. "You know," Do-hyun said, "when I found you in that vault, I thought I was saving you." "You were," Beak replied, "but you saved me too. Gave me purpose after Soin died. Gave me a reason to keep living when I had forgotten how." Do-hyun's voice was thick with emotion. "You gave me family," Beak finished. "You gave me the word. I merely returned it." In the distance, Yuna called out, "Beak, come play." The ancient wolf rose slowly. His joints made soft sounds of protest, but his spirit was as bright as ever. "I must go," he told Do-hyun. "My pack calls." Do-hyun laughed. It was a warm sound, a happy sound, a sound he had thought he would never make again. "Go," he said. "They are waiting for you." Beak walked toward the playing children. The cubs ran to meet him, climbing over his massive body with fearless joy. Yuna wrapped her arms around his neck and pressed her face into his fur. For a moment, Beak looked back at Do-hyun. Their eyes met across the field. So much had changed. A war had ended. A civilization had been reborn. A soldier and a wolf had become father and grandfather to a new generation of life. But some things never changed. The bond between them. The love they had found in darkness. The family they had built from broken pieces. Those things would last forever. Beak turned away and let the children lead him into their games. The sound of laughter filled the air. Human laughter. Void wolf howls of joy. The music of a future that had almost been lost. And somewhere in the distance, the dying sun seemed to shine a little brighter dot, as if even they knew that hope had returned to the galaxy. Hope, carried on the back of a wolf who had learned to speak. A beard on the speak. Hope, planted in the heart of a human who had learned to listen. Hope that would grow and spread and fill the stars with light. Forever. The end.